Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of My Political Truth. I am joined today by retired NYPD Detective second grade, Sal Massa. Sal, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Gerry.
My pleasure. So, Sal, we only have like 30, maybe 35 minutes. I want to jump right into it. Before we get into any of our topics that we are going to talk about, why don't you take a little bit and tell my audience about yourself, about your experience, anything you want to divulge.
Yeah, so I did my 20 years in NYPD. I retired in 2013. Most of my career in Brooklyn, rookie cop in 60 Coney Island. And I made my way to the now defunct street crime unit, where I got promoted to detective. Went back to 60. Into the detective squad, did robberies, homicides, and all that good stuff. And I finished my career on the Fed side. Actually, I was attached to the Fed on the New York Joint Terrorism Task Force. I was investigating international terrorism crimes.
Oh, wow. So you picked up experience with the street crimes and then with the international crimes, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting. If I would have told you, as a rookie cop walking on Mermaid Avenue, that I'd be in Cuba or in Africa, 16, 17 years later, I would have told you I was crazy. You never think it.
It's funny. I grew up in Coney Island. I'm very familiar with the 60 and Mermaid and all that whole area. I had no idea that that's the precinct you started at.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was my home, yeah.
So let's jump into it. I mean, we've spoken a couple of times, and I think our opinions and our thought processes on what's going on today are, we're on the same level. And I want to hear directly from law enforcement. And we're going to jump right into it. Tell me what you think about this BLM and Antifa nonsense going on. And I say nonsense. I'm not saying that's your opinion. That's my opinion. So tell me about what you think about BLM and Antifa.
Well, look, I've said it way before George Floyd, and in particular BLM now, because they're at the forefront, even though Antifa's kind of in the background of this. They'll pop their heads in and out of this. I like to focus on BLM only because, like I said, way before George Floyd, my motto always was, I'll take BLM serious when I start seeing them in cities like Chicago, where bodies are still dropping by the dozens, in New York City. When they start marching for those Black people, then I'll take them more serious. And that was always my mantra. Now, one thing I'll give them credit for, and the only thing I give them credit for, and I've always said this, they attached a cute little name, a catchy name, with an organization that are Marxists and terrorists. Let's call it what it is.
Without a doubt.
So there's a lot of people that don't differentiate between the two. And they attach onto the name, oh, that sounds great, Black Lives Matter, without doing their homework and seeing what the organization is about. And you find this from, your regular ordinary citizen all the way up to these corporations that are throwing sick money, and they don't even know where this money's going to. So, again, it's the woke crowd. It's a thing to do. It's a catchy thing. Black Lives Matter. And I'm not going to get into White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. That's another issue. But that's the only thing. Whoever's in charge of their marketing thing did it right, because there's people that are confused. They really don't know what Black Lives Matter is.
And to expand on what you just said, yeah, people are confused. But I don't think these certain people, I don't think they want to get unconfused. You know what I'm saying? I have conversations with these people and I asked them, I said, do you know what this organization is? Do you know that it was started by 3 women that admitted from the beginning that they're Marxist, which means that they're communists, that they're socialists. Socialists and Marxist is just a cutesy way of saying communist. And they don't want to hear the facts. These people that support them blindly don't want to hear the facts.
Well, I mean, look, when do they ever want to hear the facts? The facts never matter. My thing is, I don't try to change anybody's mind. I try to educate, even myself. I'm still learning today. I don't post anything. I don't talk about anything unless I do my homework. Again, they do these catchy phrases. These people from the left, systemic racism, That's another funny one. I
Yeah, I
love that
changed
phrase.
it to systemic stupidity because they got all these catchphrases now. It's unbelievable.
And you know what I find hilarious about that is I've learned a lot between the coronavirus and now all of this George Floyd stuff. Uh, the every time I turn on the TV, there's either a person of color in charge in government or in law enforcement. You look, every one of these news conferences. So, they're oppressed. There's system racism. How did these people advance? Everywhere you turn, there's people of color in government and law enforcement, police chiefs, and I'm not even talking about the celebrities. I'm not talking about the athletes. Forget about them.
Yeah.
They're a different animal. So, that's another catchy phrase. Defund the police was another big one.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
And again, you're making great points, and I want to expand on what you just said. With the people of color and Hispanics and Asians, it doesn't matter. You have everybody able to make it to where they want to make it in this country. I mean, the ones out on the front line complaining the most about systemic racism. I hate that term. I swear I hate that. I hate saying it. It feels like a razor's coming out of my mouth when I say it.
Yeah.
But they talk about systemic racism. They talk about oppression. And it's Ilhan Omar, who's a freshman congressman. It's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who went from bartender to congresswoman. What other country could she have done that in? She's super oppressed. Super oppressed. She's now richer than 99% of us. Guaranteed.
Well, Omar in particular, I hate to sound hypocritical because every time we bring up AOC, I say I don't want to give her another 5 minutes of airtime because she's just not worth it. But the fact of the matter is, she is an elected official, and she is the gift that keeps on giving.
She is. But
every time she opens her mouth.
You know what else bothers me about her? Yeah, she's stupid, and it's a good time to make fun of her, and I have a good laugh at her expense. But her ideology is dangerous because she has a lot of people following her. That's why she's so dangerous. She spits out nothing but lies, nothing but garbage, and she has this following that's cult-like. That's what's scary.
Well, you're right. It's scary, and I saw you posted it. I watched it last night. I watched it 2 more times today because I was so moved by the Cuban immigrant who came over and did it the right way and sat down with a panel, including our president. And hearing him tell his story was so moving. And this really sad part to me is you don't get to hear from people like him. It's the AOCs and the Omars that hate this country, that want to come here and turn their country into us. Whereas this gentleman came here and loves America and wants to assimilate to our ways and what America should be. Yeah. But he don't get the power, but these people get elected, and they get the airtime. And this is what's just, it's amazing to me.
That's why I call it systemic stupidity, because you got channels like CNN, MSDNC or MSLSD, whatever you want to call them, because they're tripping with the stuff that they put on TV, and they have no accountability. They have no accountability whatsoever. Nobody takes them to task for lying on an hourly basis. Let's be real. They lie about everything they say.
Well, it's funny too, because every time you get have a somewhat of a discussion with a liberal, their first thing is, "Look, go watch Fox News." And my answer to them is this: Fox News, they lean to the right. They got John Hannity, but I tell you what, Fox News has Juan Williams. Fox News has Geraldo Rivera. Fox News has Chris Wallace.
Yep.
Name me one conservative on any one of those other stations. I'll be glad to tune in.
Can't do it.
So you tell me who's fair and impartial. You tell me, who's being brainwashed. And by the way, I don't get my education from them or any TV. Like I said, I do my research. I've been around a little bit, and it's just amazing the argument they try to make.
100%. I mean, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because I talk about this on a daily basis when I do my lives. I see some nonsense that is reported by CNN or MSNBC or not reported. Like I just posted like an hour ago, the report came out the tallies came out for the shootings in Chicago this weekend. 64
Yeah.
people shot, 13 dead. That's all I posted. I didn't say anything else other than, does anybody's life matter? Because they're not going to, you could watch CNN from now till midnight tonight. They won't bring it up once. Same with MSNBC and any other rag out there, you know? That's what's bothersome about all this.
Well, I agree. But I also think it's important to note that this has been going on way before George Floyd.
Absolutely.
You know, you look at inner city, all the Democratic run cities. Again, it's not only Chicago. Now New York is turning back again. Baltimore has been like that. Detroit. And nobody talks about it. And I like to talk pre-Floyd. You know, Floyd was an igniter, which is another story in itself. You know, what was the main reason why it was ignited? Just like Freddie Gray, just like Eric Garner,
Michael Brown.
I'm sorry?
Michael Brown in Missouri last election year.
Look, all of them are false narratives. Now, I will say this about George Floyd, and I went on record when it first happened. I caught a little bit of heat, but I'm fair and I'm honest.
I'm with it.
The only thing listen, I don't care law enforcement, not law enforcement. You look at that, you don't have to be detective. Listen, you're on a guy's neck for 9.5 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Guy saying he can't breathe. And for me, as law enforcement, we had a rule in the streets. Cuffs are on, game's over.
Mm-hmm.
That was the game breaker for me. That was a game changer for me. Besides the leaning on the neck, whether that was a legal hold in that jurisdiction, I'm not going to get into. But you got a guy cuffed, game over. That was our motto. However, so people bring up he was a bad guy, and all right, he definitely was a bad guy. He didn't deserve to die. I put some heat for that. Now, that doesn't mean he deserves a king send-off in his funeral either. Let's not mistake the two, which he pretty much got.
Yeah.
That funeral, while all our loved ones are dying from COVID, and we got to have 2 people at a time, maybe, in a funeral home.
Please.
So let's not, again, I call it what it is. As law enforcement, that disgusted me, what happened there. But I'll tell you something else. Look at how hard it is for a district attorney in these type of cases to come up with the charges, which, by the way, I think he overcharged, but that's for another conversation. Look how hard it is for them to come up with an actual charge, whether it's manslaughter, murder 1, murder 2, whatever it is. Forensics, blood work, and all this kind of stuff that goes into a homicide investigation. But yet, in 10 seconds, we as a nation have accepted the fact that racism was involved in this.
Unbelievable.
So you're in this guy's head. It was because the guy's black. Just because the adversaries are of 2 different colors doesn't automatically interject racism.
Absolutely not.
And I can tell you, there's no cop that I have ever met that goes out in the streets and I'm going to kill a black guy today, or I'm going to kill an Asian today. You want to talk about bad tactics? You want to talk about bad policing? I'm all about it.
Mm-hmm.
But automatically, in 10 seconds, we've decided that was racism, and this is what has ignited this country. How do we accept that?
See, that last statement you just made, had we been on a regular TV channel, they would have cut you off and said technical difficulties. That statement that you said, that you don't know a single cop that went out on the job for their shift, that for whatever shift it was, and said, I'm going to kill X, Y, and Z today. It never happened. It's not a thing. And that's what these people don't understand. It's not like you guys sit around and draw out X's and O's like a game plan for a football game on Sunday to figure out whose chops you're going to bust,
And by the way, I'm not even going to bore you with the FBI stats on who gets killed more by police.
No.
Unarmed, armed.
Give us a little bit of stats. Please give us a little bit of stats.
I mean,
whatever you know offhand.
The stats are overwhelmingly white people are more unarmed, more white people are killed by police than black people or any other members. But so their argument is, there's more white people.
Let's talk percentages.
But yes, okay, technically there may be more white people in the country, but who has the most adverse interaction with law enforcement?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about those numbers, not the general population. 350 million people in this country, and how many of them have adverse reaction with police? You
Probably
know,
0.5%, if that.
but again, so okay, so and then what are the demographics, if you want to be honest?
Mhm.
I worked in Coney Island, I worked in the inner cities. When I was in street crime, we were in the worst of the worst neighborhoods. And you know, listen, the bottom line is, I talked to my son about this because he's in the academy now. You know, you give respect, you get respect out on the street. And again, going back to the whole, you know, cuffs are on thing, even the bad guys know cuffs are on for the most part. You got guys that still resisted, yeah. But in the Floyd case, it wasn't so. And but again, don't mix up the two. You know, watching what's happening in this country, cities burning, and our government officials standing by watching it. That boob in Seattle saying this is the summer of love.
Oh my God.
I mean, these are people that should be going to jail.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be protecting your citizens.
Yep.
And it took another child to be killed for her to finally get help in there and shut that down.
Well, the reason I found out, I heard this actually today. The other day, Sean Hannity interviewed President Trump. And last week, the day before that, that mayor, what's her name? Mayor Fry? Oh, no. That's Minneapolis. Jenny Durkin. Jenny Durkin is the name of the mayor of Seattle. She,
Right.
the day after Trump comes out and says, if you don't do this, we're coming in tomorrow. And she heard that. And the next day is when she decided to clean up that Chaz, whatever nonsense that was called. And to go even further on that, Sean Hannity had the father of one of the kids that was killed there. This 19
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that, right?
Yeah.
And nobody, not the mayor, not the governor, not the police chief, nobody contacted this man for what, a week and a half? And then President Trump was the first politician to contact him after he saw his interview on Hannity, because nobody said anything about this. How do you govern? How do you claim to be responsible for an entire city of people when you can't protect, you know, anybody?
To me, it's dereliction of duty, and you should immediately step down. When you're pandering to one group, and listen, I'd say that if she was pandering just to the police and not the inner city community. You know, you're a mayor, you're supposed to be, or governor, or whatever elected official, you're supposed to represent everyone. That's what you're there for. You don't get to pick a group that you want to represent for the bottom line, which is votes. Okay, because these people, they make a career out of this. They make a career out of division and hatred. But if they didn't have that, how are they getting the votes? Who are they getting the votes from?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And they got to pander to, you know, be it New York City, Chicago, all liberal run cities that are just garbage right now. And that's what they are. We're both from New York and we both don't live there anymore. But I'll tell you that my city that I grew up in, that I loved, is a slum right now. It's a cesspool. And I'm embarrassed. I'm disgusted. I'm saddened by it. It's awful. But we could talk about the same topic for the next 2 hours. I want to move on to something I think is super important. And we touched on it for a second before, but this ridiculous notion of defund the police. I had I don't know if you saw 2 weeks ago, I had a former CSI investigator on with me. She was on, what do you call it? Kind of like behind the camera, because she's still working and she didn't want to be public. And what she said, which makes so much sense, is instead of defunding the police, we need to invest back into the police, into different training, into better training, better tactics, but they want to take money away from them. What do you think about that?
100%. So again, going back to what I had said earlier, that's another phrase everybody started using: defund the police.
Mm-hmm.
Marching with the signs, and you got these dopes. They're looking around. They go, "What exactly does this mean? I don't know." So if you ask 100 of them, you're going to get 100 different answers. What does it mean? Does it mean get rid of police? Does it mean taking money and putting it elsewhere? What does it mean? And like you said, or like your guest had said, you know, you can't on one side of your mouth say, we need more training in our police department, which I'm for, by the way. Mm-hmm. There's never enough training. I don't care where it is. I talk to people in all different jurisdictions. Sometimes it's mind-blowing. If I talk to some cops from other departments, and just for an example, I'll go, how many times you got to go to the range a year and qualify? Some of the answers I get, or how often do you get to practice self-defense or tactics? and you get these variant answers. And I go, how are these guys and girls getting trained? So I'm all for the training. But you can't on one side of your mouth say, we need to be training our police more, but we're going to take money from them. Well, how do you train police without that money? You think you're going to do it for free?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and again, it became a phrase. I think it's starting to die out a little bit because people are realizing that what it really means. And listen, in the long run, so, again, I was in street crime, is now defunct. Plain clothes in general in New York City is defunct. Who are you hurting? Tell me who you're hurting.
I know it's rhetorical, but I'll tell you right now I grew up in New York. I know exactly who it's hurting, but tell us.
Well, it's the people of the inner city, because that's what they're there for. And by the way, the bad guys know they're not getting touched out there no more. The bad guys know. There's no more no more plainclothes guys out there.
It's open season.
Yeah, lawless. So, but again, who suffers? The same people that you're professing to be protected and for. Mm-hmm. But nobody wants to talk about that.
No, and the fact that the majority of their victims, I mean, let's be real, and it was 97% of the shootings in New York last month, of the 205 shootings, was black on black. Yeah. 97%. It's not racist to state the facts. I'm sorry. If people don't want to hear it, that's on them, but that's the fact. That's a true number. That's a CompStat number.
Well, you can't make believe it's any other way. If it was any other way, I got no problem focusing on that particular group, whatever the group is. Our job is to go after the crime. We don't, a regular cop running a radio run, you get that radio call, you don't ever ask Central or dispatch, by the way, what color is that person? Mm-hmm. You go, and that's it. That's the bottom line.
It's unbelievable. I mean, thinking back to, I guess, my prime years in New York, it was like the mid to late 90s, and when Giuliani was in charge, right?
Yep.
He took over after Dinkins, and Dinkins, I mean, compared to de Blasio, Dinkins would be amazing right now. But when Giuliani took over after Dinkins, he cleaned that city up. He implemented a bunch of different things. We talked about the broken windows, the stop, question, and frisk. Why did these people come out and basically accuse, of course, the police department, the mayor, of being racist because of implementing stop, question, and frisk? They didn't say stop, question, and frisk black people, stop, question, and frisk white people, stop, question, and frisk Asians. It's stop, question, and frisk everybody, period. Everybody I know on Staten Island, we've all gotten it. On the South Shore, we've all gotten it, and rightfully so.
Well, so there's a couple answers to that. It's very, stop, question, and frisk became a political animal. And under its own right, when it first started, it was a very effective policing tool. Mm-hmm. And, again, we're going to go into statistics, and where, especially us in street crime, and where plainclothes police are mainly deployed into cities where there's high crime. So where is that? The 7-5, 6-7, 7-1, those type of precincts, 7-0. And those of you from New York that are familiar with those neighborhoods, you know where I'm talking about, mostly inner city. You're not going to take plain clothes and put them where there's, relatively no crime. So again, now you're in these neighborhoods and you're policing. And again, whether you get a radio call or whatever, it's a description. 2 Asians, whatever, 2 black men. If I get a call on 2 black men, just for political correctness, I'm going to stop 3 white guys for the paperwork. Now we're going to start playing with numbers. Now, what they did wrong with stop, question, and frisk is that it became, instead of a tool, it became a numbers generator. Mm-hmm. And that's where they went wrong with it. Okay? They started judging police by their activity. You have a certain amount. So it wasn't being used properly. We made, when we were in the squad, we made a lot of good arrests off of people doing stop, question, and frisk, which the form was called the UF 250. Mm-hmm. You studied those forms, and we caught a lot of bad guys. That guys were getting stopped out in the street. We stopped a lot of patterns, and again, that's when it was a really good tool. When it started becoming a numbers generator, that's when it went sideways.
Mhm.
So there's basically two lives of stop, question, and frisk. The original implementation was an excellent police tool, but at the end, it became a numbers generator and it went sideways.
And I'm sure when it was originally implemented, it was done out of wanting to protect the citizens of New York. It wasn't done with, let's see how many people we could put in jail into Rikers or whatever the case. You know what I'm saying? It was done because after Dinkins, the crime rate was what, 2,500 murders a year after Dinkins? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, these are all police strategies. And look, every different administration has a different strategy. I was under a few different administrations. I was there for Bratton. I was there for Safer. I was there for, obviously, for Kerrick. But the bottom line is, it's so political that they carry the torch of whoever's sitting in City Hall, and that's just the brutal truth of it. Look right now with De Blasio there. I happen to know the police commissioner. I worked for his brother. I don't care who sits in that seat. The guy before him, O'Neill, they were all great guys. They get in that seat. If you got him, a guy like De Blasio pulling the string, I'm sorry. I don't care what your strategy is. It's not going to work for the good of the city. That's what I'm going to say. So, depending on the administration, like the administration you brought up, obviously Giuliani was law and order. Former prosecutor, Italian prosecutor that took on the mob, feared no one, took no prisoners, no nonsense type of guy. He cleaned up the city. And the sad part is all the work he did and some of the guys came after him. Look how quick it took for them to take it away.
Yeah, and look how long it took for him to make it like
right.
The biggest, the safest big city in the country. That's what New York was under Giuliani, and now gone. That's it.
Yeah, and it wasn't only safe. It's not only about safety. And you brought up the broken windows thing. That's also about quality of life. Mm-hmm. It's another thing nobody talks about. New York City and a lot of these other cities, you're paying a ton of money in taxes. Don't you deserve a quality of life? Of course, as crime-free as you want it to be. But a lot of this stuff was quality of life. And their strategy was to get the little crime before it turns into the bigger one. Okay? And again, this is another thing I hear about a lot that drives me nuts. We hear about Eric Garner, Mike Brown, and all these guys. Eric Garner, their mantra, Eric Garner didn't have to die. He died because he was selling cigarettes. No, first of all, he died because he fought with the police. But I will tell you this, and I can't drive this home enough. The police are enforcers of the law. They're not makers of the law. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem with the law itself, go to your local, mostly Democratic in New York City, politicians and fight to change the law. Sure. Okay? If you don't like the law, change it. Now, granted, I'm not going to make believe that selling cigarettes is the crime of the century, but I'll tell you this. It's a crime that's on the law, on the books. But not only that, you know who it's a crime to? It's a crime to that guy across the street in the bodega trying to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Who has overhead, who has a payroll maybe, who has insurance, who has electricity. He's got to sell those same cigarettes that guy's selling, and he's got no overhead. You tell me how that's fair.
Nope. I got nothing.
So, I mean, we could debate whether the police should be getting involved in those type of things, but again, it's on the books. We're getting complaints about it, and the police acted. If the police didn't act, they're the bad guys.
Listen, in New York, quality of life crimes are just as big and prevalent, I think, as violent crimes, because you have all kinds of people, all kinds of neighborhoods, all throughout the 5 boroughs. And people came to New York from Italy, from Russia, from China, from Japan, from wherever, to live a good life. And with something as small as and seemingly insignificant as a man standing outside of a store selling Lucy's turns out to be super significant. And people just don't want to acknowledge that.
Again, and I listen, I even hear some conservatives say, listen, police shouldn't be getting involved in this, and, selling cigarettes is stupid. Well, again, tell that to the guy trying to do it the right way. You go tell, the guy in the bodega trying to do it the right way, who most of them, by the way, came from other countries to try to make it a better life.
Of course.
That, these people you care so much about, okay? Why don't you go tell that guy that has an overhead that this guy could stand there and sell cigarettes across the street from your store? So
it's, and then you hear some of these explanations and some of these excuses after the report came out last week that the 205 shootings in New York, de Blasio comes out and blames coronavirus. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez the other day blamed that people need to go steal to feed their families. That's not why they're killing people. That's not why stray bullet shot a 7-year-old girl in the forehead while she was crossing the street with her father. That's not what, I mean, and people sit here and eat this stuff up, and it drives me mad, Sal. It drives me crazy.
Listen, I'm with you, brother. The only thing is, some of these politicians, I expect that from. What me, again, as part of law enforcement, and I just heard it today. I heard it today from, I forget what rank they call them in Chicago, so superintendent or acting superintendent, an African-American police chief in Chicago.
David Brown. That's his name. David Brown.
His thing was, this has happened because of racial inequality. So we're going to throw everything on the backs of racial inequality. And this is the reason, like you said, why 18-month-old kids are getting killed, because of racial inequality and frustration because they can't get jobs.
Right. Because I think I'm accepting of all this. And then I have a conversation with somebody like you, and the facts re-enter my head. The common sense re-enters, my brain, and it makes me even angrier, and we got like 5-7 minutes left. I want to finish off on this. Short of removing, say, de Blasio in New York, or Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago, or Garcetti in Los Angeles, or Jenny Durkin in Seattle, how can we save these cities? How can we save New York, short of removing de Blasio from office? What can anybody do?
Well, look, they got a year and a half. The sad part about New York is not only de Blasio. You look at the people that are coming after him, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And that's the real scary part to me. It's another 18 months of suffering under this guy. And I see some of the cast of characters coming from behind him, the Eric Adams and all these other characters, Jumaine Williams. And
and not to cut you off, but I fully believe that the only reason that Cuomo hasn't removed de Blasio yet is because Jumaane Williams is right behind him, and he's the one that's going to have to take over if de Blasio gets removed from office. And he might be the one person in all of New York City that's actually worse than Comrade de Blasio.
You're right, but now that you bring up Cuomo, the next question is then, he's no bargain himself. How do we get rid of him? Yeah,
that's all right. The Democrats are setting it up for him to be the presidential.
Yeah, they got him and DeSantis down here already. 2024, they're going at it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're already starting the nonsense.
Yep.
I don't know. If President Trump doesn't win, we're in for so many problems, coast to coast, not just, in New York or Chicago. Florida is going to be a problem. Even the Midwest might fall by the wayside, where it's mostly red and conservative. It may fall by the wayside if President Trump loses.
Well, it's funny you bring up the red and conservative, and we're feeling this down here in Florida, and I love my fellow New Yorkers, but my message to them always is, you guys are sick and tired of New York and you want to get out of there. Do me a favor, when you come back down here or wherever you go, leave your stupid liberal ideas back home.
I say that 5 times a week at least.
I mean, don't bring that garbage down here, because then why are you leaving? Remember why you left there to begin with.
Yeah, don't come down here and start voting for these same liberals that you put in office up there, and the same communists and socialists, and don't do that here.
and again, it's scary because, we were really red and we're starting to be purplish. And I hate to say it, a lot of it has to do with the transplanted New Yorkers.
Yeah.
I call it like it is. it's happening in Tennessee a little bit. My brother lives there, which I love. I love Tennessee. It happened in Colorado. All the Californians going over to Colorado and turning that state. Leave your stupid ideas home. Otherwise, stay there.
100%.
Stay there.
100%. Nobody's asking you to come here. Stay where you are. We're good.
We like what we have.
It's so scary, the world that we live in now. I thought it was a problem 20 years ago. 20 years ago was fine. It was fine compared to what I feel like. All these big cities are falling apart and nobody is stepping up. The majority of even the Republicans are staying quiet, and that's infuriating.
Yeah, I agree. There's not a lot of guys, they're sitting on their hands, whether it's at a government level or a law enforcement level. To me, it burns me, even law enforcement wise. I've seen a lot of good chiefs and big people in these police departments. I don't know who decided that this strategy of retreating and taking a step back during this whole thing was a good strategy. But if you think that these people, again, look, I made a post. I tell people the other day, I go, you start kneeling, it's tough to rise, brother. You take a step back, it's tough to take a step forward.
100%.
And they want blood. You kneel, now they want you to kiss their feet and wash their feet. And which, by the way, some people actually do. Yeah, I know.
I'll refrain from commenting on that. I've already been called a white supremacist by my own family, so I'm not going to say another thing. Meanwhile, I'm married to a Hispanic, so I'm not going to say anything when it comes to that, but it made me throw up in my mouth just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm at war right now. I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, they decided to have this on social media, color your wall black for Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some people that I'm very close with got involved with that, and I'm very upset with it, to say the least. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, the only full black color, any kind of, protest that I'll do is I won't use duct tape anymore. I only use this black Gorilla tape. That's it. That's the only protest that I'll do because, listen, I don't want to get involved. I'm here to express my feelings and my opinions, and I'm so happy you came on. Sal, Detective Massa, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to have a law enforcement panel on soon. I'm going to have a retired FBI guy. I want to have you on, and I'm working on 2 more people. One is current in NYPD and one is current in LAPD. So I want to that'd be a great mix, I think.
Beautiful. I'd love to. Thanks for having me, brother.
You got it. Thank you.
All right.